On Thursday, May 2nd, the Associated Press and social media broke the news that over 200 professional women's hockey athletes are boycotting any further professional play unless they, quote, get the resources that professional hockey demands and deserves. While the Canadian Women's Hockey League ceased operations due to financial woes, this poses an immediate threat to the National Women's Hockey League. With larger implications to the game, WVBR wanted to engage in this conversation by hearing more from two Cornell women's ice hockey icons. Micah Zandee-Hart, a women's hockey player for Cornell and Team Canada, provided reasoning to the boycott from her perspective.
I think for me, it's definitely something that I think has, I don't want to say been in the works for a while, but obviously we've been going back and forth on this whole one league concept for, many years leading up to this. We've always felt like although we had two leagues in place in North America, it wasn't necessarily ideal in terms of what we felt we deserved as players and as professional athletes. So I think although it might have been surprising to many, I think for those of us in the game, this was a long time coming, us kind of using our voices and finally banding together as players from all over the world at the highest level to say, this isn't where we feel it deserves to be, and we don't really have a plan on what's going to happen with it, but we need to find a way to make it better.
Moreover, Zandee-Hart says that these players are focused on getting what they need to play at the professional level.
As athletes, right now, we're just focusing on getting what we feel we need. It's not really about who's going to be the support, who's going to do what. It's that, hey, look, there's things in place that are so-called there for women's hockey, but if we're going to be professional athletes and we're going to do this as a living, these are the things we need, and we're not just going to jump into anything until we have those. Like the girl said in the statement, health insurance, strength and conditioning coaches, full-time coaches, full-time athletic therapists. It's those things that are what we're fighting for, not necessarily for a specific thing to be our support system.
While the players' boycott received great support from many, others remained skeptical of the situation. Digit Murphy, owner and founder of Proven Winners and United Women's Sports, has an impeccable repertoire as an athlete and businesswoman. Her mission is to grow role models and opportunities for women by using sports as a platform. She is not in favor of this boycott.
My initial reaction was it's an absolute bombshell. It is the absolute wrong way to go in this very tenuous women's sports environment. The CWHL leaving is, let me back this up by saying my platform in life, as I've gravitated through the sports world, is to create and grow opportunities for women using sports as a platform. So when I see things like the CWHL going belly up in 1 year after a commissioner, a woman growing the game, a couple women, Sammy Jo Small and Brenda Andrus, growing that league in 12 years from nothing to something. And then in 1 year, a new commissioner, a new board comes in and just says it's not feasible. That's fishy to me. Then when the players come in and boycott, I don't know what they're boycotting because there's no revenue stream.
Murphy echoes the message of unity, but beside the boycott, we need to raise strong questions and get concrete answers.
And what I believe women in general in sports have to do is not come with lists of demands and bifurcate themselves and separate themselves. They need to come together, and that's what Proven Winners and United Women's Sports is all about, and that's the drum that I've marched to my whole life, including being at Cornell, having the opportunity to go to Cornell as a 1983 graduate, as someone that was one of the true pioneers that benefited from Title IX. When I see, quote unquote, 200 athletes boycotting, I see disaster on the horizon, because this really isn't about 200 athletes. This really is about creating a platform that grows role models and leaders for women. So when we sit here and draw attention to ourselves by boycotting and holding our hand out and saying, you need to pay us, I say, where's the money coming from? Why do you deserve it? And how are you going to make a difference to help that problem go away?
When discussing a larger revenue stream and support system, this boycott resurfaces discussions that athletes are asking to be adopted by the NHL to form one united North American Women's Hockey League. I reached out to NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman for comment, but was referred to a statement attributed to Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly. The statement reads that the NHL is still gathering information but recognizes the National Women's Hockey League as an existing league with an existing organization and business plan that the NHL does not intend to interfere with. So where will the needed revenue come from? Murphy believes that women's hockey needs to rely on a different, disruptive business model.
I would say that you really need to look at the root of the problem as to why people don't pay to watch women's sports. And I honestly don't think it has anything to do with the product. I think it has to do with the way that we've been socialized to watch men's sports, how we watch men's sports, how we interact with the men athletes. That's a traditional, what I call a traditional model. I believe there's a whole nother model out there. There's a disruptive model where women can do women's sports differently. We keep making the same mistake over and over again, which is to cram this women's thing into what the men have been doing. And I believe that there's a way to do it that's completely different, that's completely disruptive, that will work. And that really will drive revenue if people work together. And I don't see that happening right now. So, it's very disheartening to me to see this happen.
On the collegiate level, Cornell and other institutions rely on Title IX to host equality between men's and women's athletics on paper. What's observed and perceived are different social matters, but Murphy says that this is what these athletes were trained to live by.
The problem right now is that people that have been very fortunate to play for universities that have very good resources, where they really care about women's sports. And the reason that they have to care is because Title IX makes them care. The second you walk outside of that bubble, okay, that's what the athlete's experience has been. Then they go to USA Hockey, they're taken care of. But the second they walk out of that bubble, you walk into animal capitalism. You eat what you kill. You have to develop revenue streams if you want to get paid. It's a jungle out there in capitalism. The strong survive. And they're not used to being in that environment. And until they learn how to be in that environment and grow and thrive, which they should be able to, because those are the lessons that you learn in sport, right? Until you learn how to survive in that environment, you're going to fail.
When asked about the perception of women's hockey at the collegiate level, Zandee-Hart provided a more optimistic picture for Cornell, but admits the sport could grow as a whole.
A lot of schools we go to and a lot of schools we play against, hockey is not the number one sport on campus. Here at Cornell, what we do have is a love for the game of hockey, and that comes from our men's team and the support that they've had for many years. Leading up to now, and then that's something that our team has also built. So I do feel very, very grateful for that support we have here. I would say it's just kind of an up and down across collegiate women's hockey, just based on the schools and where those schools are and what the focus is kind of put on in terms of athletics at different schools. I definitely think women's hockey is still in a place where not everyone knows how great of a game it is, how exciting it is, how similar and comparable it is to the men's side of the game. Not everyone sees that yet.
Regardless, there are young girls in our central New York region, across the U.S. and across North America, waiting to see what will happen. I asked Zandee-Hart if she could provide one word of advice to these young girls, and it would be this.
I think I'll use my own perspective. Growing up, I came from a place that wasn't necessarily a hockey hotbed. I didn't have, a Cornell women's hockey team to go and watch and hang out with and kind of see. But what moved me forward was watching the women's Olympic team play every world championship and every 4 years in the Olympics, and that was day one where I wanted to go, and those were my heroes, and those were leaders in my sense, is watching those players play. So I think for young girls, it's not always easy to find, but I think when you do find those role models to look up to, I think definitely get everything you can out of them, and though it might be uncertainty, though you might not be watching your best players on TV in the coming years or in this coming year where there might be a lockout sort of situation, I think look at what they are doing and kind of trying to understand that they're doing this, they're not playing in order for those young girls to play in the future. I think looking at that and seeing that is just as important as them, playing their hearts out on the ice, I think is something that hopefully young girls can understand moving forward.
For WVBR News, I'm Christopher Morales.